We're Ashley and Sabrina,
your co-host for RUP Buttercup podcast.
Military life can be challenging,
but also has its advantages.
Come and be part of the unfiltered
and sometimes unhinged conversations with fellow military spouses, Kayla and Laura, as we dive into the occasional rant
and brave of military life.
Share the stories that make us who we are,
and showcase the amazing organizations
and resources out there that make our lives a little bit better.
Whether you're new
or a seasoned military family,
we all need a little extra love.
Make sure to catch us on Wreath Across America Radio at 11 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of RUP Buttercup. We are here and we have Alyssa Johnson. She is going to talk to us about Dogs on Deployment. It's a really, really cool nonprofit that is supporting our military community and something that our military community can support one another. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of let her start right away and get to tell us a little bit about herself and what she's done in the military community, as well as what Dogs on Deployment is doing.
Well, hi. Thanks so much for having me. I am excited to be able to share the mission of our organization with your guys' listeners. I'm Alyssa Johnson. I served in the Marine Corps. I was a C-130 pilot, and my husband was also in the Navy. So we actually met in college in our ROTC program, and we did the whole courthouse marriage, didn't tell our family. I wasn't even old enough to drink champagne. Been there.
Yep, exactly that same story.
Cool. We relate, I'm like, I still haven't even really publicly talked about that story because it feels so long ago, but
it was kind of our generation though, that early 2000s, and that was kind of the choice was to get married or not live together. The Army was not very flexible with that situation on our end anyways. So
yeah, co-location is definitely a beast all in of itself. And whether you're talking about people or animals, that's where we our organization particularly steps in on the animal side. Unfortunately, I can't foster a military spouse or child, but that service is actually,
wouldn't that be a great service to have in general? Just adopt a military spouse and just be there for them when they need it. That's what we kind of do at Deployed Love, but that's we're here to help you when you need it.
Yeah, really building community, right? And I think that's something that is such a unique thing. I left active duty service after 9.5 years in 2019. And I've now been doing my organization full time since leaving active duty service. But being on the civilian side, the thing that I really recognize as being something that was very special was that camaraderie and that true community of it doesn't matter who you are or where your background is or anything. If you have somebody in your network or your community that's in trouble, you just do what you have to do to help that person. And truly, there's so much effort in my life now trying to recreate that community. And something that our organization does so well is creating a community centered around service members, first responders, veterans, and their companion animals. It makes this very unique place to be, especially in today's world where we're starved for connection and starved for real purpose. Well, I guess with that, I can tell you what Dogs on Deployment is.
Tell us how it all came about. Tell us why you chose to start this nonprofit and what brought you to this point?
This little guy. It's a painting I did of him, so it's not a great shot, but I had an Australian Shepherd named JD. So when my husband and I got engaged, it was August 2008, and we got engaged, and 3 days later we were married at the courthouse, and our little ring bearer was our new puppy, JD. He was a little miniature Australian Shepherd, blue merle, worst dog ever. When we drove across country from Pensacola to California, when my husband finished flight school and he moved out to California, probably because of that co-location, or because he was really, really at the top of his class and he got his first choice. So, we can argue the nuances, but we had this puppy and my husband drove him all the way across country and was just cried and whined and barked the
Aww.
whole time. Like, so by the time my husband's like home and he's like, oh my gosh, like I need a break from this dog, right? But that was his personality. You know, he bolted out the door, he would steal food. Like, we were young kids. I was full-time as an engineering student in ROTC at University of San Diego. My husband was new pilot at his command. Like, we just didn't have a lot of time to train our dog the way that dogs need to be trained. And, you know, I now have my next soul puppy. He was obviously my first puppy, but my very first dog was a red heeler that I had as a kid. And just this past year, we brought a red heeler from Baja into our family. So, and it's interesting because, you know, I'm doing it again, that puppy thing, but with a whole new perspective, and also like patience and understanding like what really needs to be invested in our dogs to make sure that we don't have problems with them in the future. And like training at that early age is so key, especially for military members, because when you travel, you have to stay in hotels. When you go on base, you have to have a dog that's like well behaved. When you are trying to get rentals or military housing, like having a dog that barks can be a huge liability. So, you know, just if you're out there considering getting a puppy or if you have one, training. So we didn't have training for JD. So when it came time, I finally commissioned in the Marine Corps in 2010, and I had to go to Virginia for the basic school. And my husband at the same time was scheduled to deploy. And so we had nowhere for our dog to go. And here's this high energy Australian Shepherd that like no sit and roll over. And I'm like, that's good. And all my family was like, nope, like we're not taking on that liability for 6 months. Right. And so it really put my husband and I in a bind of what do we do with our dogs or our dog. And we were looking at professionally kenneling him in Virginia. At the time, there was not a dogs on deployment. The organizations that did exist at the time just weren't something that was going to necessarily work for me. And I was like, this is a problem. And we were looking at professional kenneling, but not to mention just the astronomical cost.
For sure.
I mean, have either of you ever...
No, like just the cost of like doing like a weekend at an installation is just like military families can't afford that. So,
yeah. So when you're talking about 6 months, you're talking thousands of dollars. And you know, there's a moment where I like almost that was my only choice, but then I was like, but my dog has horrible separation anxiety. So I didn't want to leave him there. And we were superbly lucky that a distant relative that was also a veteran, they lived in Virginia and they just happened to have a big house with a yard. And through the rumor mill of our family ended up finding about our predicament, and they offered their home to watch JD. So on the weekends, while everyone else was going out to, you know, Alexandria and DC, I was in Warrenton, Virginia, like on the couch watching Harry Potter with my dog. Those were the good days, right?
What I love about your story and what like started the nonprofit is something that we all hear. Like there was a need and it needed to be filled. Like there wasn't a one place shop to go and say, hey, like we need help. We need someone to help us find someone to watch our puppy or cat or whatever it may be. And that is just, it's so interesting to hear all these stories that we talk to about, like even our organization, like how it started. We see a need and we take it and we go on. So you found someone, you found a family member, which is great because that's not always the case. Sometimes, I mean, I've had friends who've left it with like complete strangers. We've watched dogs before for our friends who have been in like predicaments, and my story is not so happy ending though, because we were moving, we couldn't keep him with us, and then unfortunately the person that was watching him after us didn't do a good job at watching him, so he was no longer with us. So it's a really sad story, and it breaks my heart that he is no longer with us anymore. But and I was like, we should have just done it, but he was a gorgeous Rottweiler, and he was just so gigantic. And we were moving from Texas to North Carolina. And I was like, there's no way we can do this with 2 small kids. And we had 2 dogs of our own. So I can understand the predicament of trying to find someone you trust and care to watch your family member. I mean, we're all dog moms. We all had, I mean, you know, whether you believe that that's the thing or not, I mean, our animals have special places in our hearts. And so
I have a similar story too, that it's like when we were in Hawaii, we were moving, but I was 36 weeks pregnant. The flight had said that we had a dog spot. I had to take that flight, right? Because if I didn't get on that flight, there was no moving. Like, they're like, oh, you could stay here and your husband can come visit you. Like, it's not logical when you're in Hawaii. That's way too expensive. We have to be on that flight. And they're like, well, the dog spots are gone. And then, so we had to end up having to rehome, which where dogs on deployment would have been a great situation where we could have just had somebody take them while we were, because we were moving from Hawaii to Germany, while we were there for the 2 years, and then we could have picked up our dog again. But it ended up being, we had to rehome because there wasn't the resources for it. And we were E2, E3 maybe, and just, there's not enough finances. Like, we just could not afford it.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring up such a unique situation to the military community that is something that's really important to us when it comes to educating the public of why we exist, because your situation encompasses so many different programs that our organization does. So Dogs on Deployment, when I was on that cross country drive, we started thinking about how could we solve this problem. And this was before Dog Vacay. I think Airbnb was out by then. And so we were kind of like, that whole like subscription model thing was just starting to come around. And so we were kind of thinking about it from that aspect, or like a Craigslist or a Match.com is really what I based my original website off of, was a dating site. So I always said Dogs on Deployment was more dating site than not. And we had one time our service member married the roommate of their boarder.
Oh, that's so funny. I love that so much.
Yeah. I believe they were in Virginia Beach, but I digress. Yeah. So
not only are you finding matches for puppies, but you're making real love matches in the real world. I love that so much.
I know it could be a movie, which maybe
let's do it.
But when I was driving across and we started thinking about this idea, it was all about empowering the pet owner to find somebody that worked for them, not the organization is giving you or taking the animal and putting them someplace. And even if they say they're screening and they're, and everything, there's a level of ownership. I think that service members specifically, we're all type A, the military spouses and service members, most of us are all very type A, and we want to have control. And
when we can, absolutely, because we have so much that's out of our control. So when we can't control it, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that was a real driving factor for me as I designed the first website that allowed people to connect with each other. But I mean, this first website, it was hideously colored. I mean, I had lime green and orange mixed together, like not good. But I was literally manually taking like messaging and being like, keeping like a Excel spreadsheet and like, okay, I have these people in these areas that need help. Like, I'm on Facebook trying to find people in spouse club groups and, support groups everywhere, trying to like match people together. And eventually I was able to get my 501c3 license. Meanwhile, like, I have just finished the basic school, and now I'm in flight school learning how to fly the T-30.
She sounds like us.
Yeah.
Like, all the things.
Like why it's such self-torture, but like for the right reason, right? And I think so many people get really afraid when they feel something passionate, especially when you're in the service, because I cannot tell you how many times I was told like to get my priorities straight, or why am I focusing on this when I should be only focusing on flight school? And all of that was very true. But for us that are trying to find like passion and meaning in the world, like for me, when I was in flight school, it was too self-focused. It was all about my grades, my performance, my competition, my flights, my schedule, everything. And I joined the Marine Corps to be like outwardly focused. Mm-hmm. And so I got myself kind of in this like weird mix between I want to be available to these service members that were needing help. And then it became more than just boarding. To your point of that PCS story from Hawaii to Germany, I mean, do you remember what that would have cost? Did you ever look at what a civilian flight cost?
I can't even imagine. No. And it isn't like what it is now. Like, luckily now that they've changed things, it's so much easier. Like, I know my brother, he's Air Force, and he was like, because I don't have any dependents, I'm also able to add 2 dogs onto like being able to pay for 2 dogs that they're charging now. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I wish that had been something we had an option to even consider.
Yeah, I think when we moved overseas our first time as kids, like, we had to rehome our dog because it wasn't like a thing where, like, if we wanted our animals to come with us, we had to pay out of pocket for it. And I mean, that was like over 2 decades ago. And so I couldn't even imagine, like, if you had more than one pet, like bringing multiple pets and stuff overseas, but even across country, like, you're talking about driving, you drove across country. I remember when we drove from North Carolina to Alaska, and we had a new puppy too. And I was like, I had to spend weeks planning hotels along the way because we drove to Alaska and we drove in the middle of winter. So there were still hotels that were closed. We ended up having to pay like a premium because the only hotels that still allowed dogs were the most expensive. I mean, we ended up paying like a hotel, like it ended up being like a $500 stay because of like the room rate, plus they charged us like a pet fee for each pet. And what we had to stay, it wasn't like we could camp out on our way because, like, people have done that in the past. Like, I've seen people do that instead, but I mean, it was full on blizzard when we drove through.
Yeah.
And that's not covered. Like, a lot of that came out of
everything else might be, but the pet fees, and
then the pet fees are stupid expensive nowadays. I think we paid $1,000 moving here to Virginia just for pet fees.
Right.
I hope it's a fee, and that's, if you're listening, fee and deposit means different things in each state. So figure out what it means in those states. Because if it says deposit, you're not getting it back. If it's a fee, you may get it back. So, oh no. But yeah, so we, moving with pets is really hard. But, I've also been following this organization for a really long time, especially because, especially when you have service members who we've had so many service members who are just solo service members who have pets, and they don't have a spouse who's staying home to watch the pet, or their families across country, so they can't just go drop off the pet like, easily, like I could do right now. I could easily take my dog to my in-laws right now. They're within 4 hours of us, but that's not always the case. So you started your organization, you went through all these steps, you were scouring through. What did you do?
I can't even imagine, like, you being busy and starting a nonprofit. Starting this nonprofit was so much work.
I was just like, it's fine, I'll figure it out. And then, of course, I remember my husband asked me a question. He was like, should we make it just San Diego based, or should this be like national? And I was like, well, it has to be national. Like, yeah, I mean, it was funny. While I was in flight school, like, we ended up on like the Queen Latifah show and like People's Magazine and like on Fox and Friends, and I'm like doing this like media circuit, like, while also trying to finish up my flight contract. And like, at one point in time, like, our website crashed because we had so many people coming to it from all this media exposure. And so we really got on this launch pad, which was great. I mean, and that's actually where, we became a full nonprofit. We started to be able to generate, the ability to create better programs. And so, to your point earlier about the PCSing move, that became another real big core piece of our organization. So not only do we provide this foster network that's an online database or application, we also expanded to help PCSing families with the financial cost of having to move their pets. I mean, I remember, like, one story just kind of broke my heart. For the most part, our organization gives financial assistance to E6 and below, or E5 and below, depending on how we're doing with fundraising. But at this time, I had a officer who was like the same rank as me, and he applied for a financial assistance to move his 2 Great Danes back from Japan to California, and it was going to be $10,000.
That's so. Oh my God, my brain just broke. What?
And this was before the pandemic. Like this was in
probably gosh. Like, could you imagine how much that would be like in today's market?
Right. Yeah. Because after the pandemic and all the shipping changes, the cost, that same flight might now be $17,000.
Dude, I can't, like $10,000. My brain, I
well,
cannot.
Guess what? He had just paid $10,000 because him and his wife, who was pregnant, had PCS from California to Japan. And that's where he was supposed to be stationed. He had already paid
$10,000 to move them there.
Yeah. Well, he was applying for financial assistance because his wife had a complication with her pregnancy and they had to come back to California for medical care. And they were trying to bring their dogs back with them because they had literally, it was like 3 or 6 months they had only been there, and now they were having to pay another $10,000 to bring their dogs back. And it was like, of course, like we're going to help.
Yeah, we'll help
family, you know, and it's just, there's so many micro moments like that in military families that just obliterate like our trust in the system, our trust in ourselves, the trust in our ability to do the right thing by our families, like our kids' ability to trust us, that when we say we're going to get you a family dog and then you're like, well, I can't afford to take our new dog to Germany.
So we actually just had to put one of our dogs down in November, and our kids are already asking, like, are we going to get a dog? Right. And I'm like, we can't, like,
so we know we're not moving anymore. Yeah.
I told them, I was like, maybe after we moved, like when we don't have to pay to ship him, my son wants a snake and stuff like that. And I'm like, we can't add anymore because like every single time we've moved, the cost, and it's all out of our pocket. Like none of this is covered. The pet fees aren't covered. Then getting established in a new vet, because then you have to go have like a full, like they may not need it.
Right.
But
you need to go in for vaccination. They're going to have to
do a full exam, everything. I mean, heck, that, just doing that when we got here, because, I knew my dogs needed to get vaccinated and stuff like that. My older dog, the one that we had to put down, was having a lot of issues, but I knew I had to get her in, and that was $800.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just to get in to get like vaccines updated, to get all that. So like, and obviously that's a fee that comes with being a pet owner, but when it's out of that rhythm of having their like exams and their fees and things like that, and like any new vet, like I was trying to take my dog up to the road to the vet. Our vet that we go to is 45 minutes away, but I just need to get him his expressed. I won't go into too much details, but because he stinks. Anyways.
Yes, I understand.
But they're like, oh no, because he'll be this first time seeing him, we have to do a full exam. I'm like, well, I'll just drive the 45 minutes to our vet where I don't have to do the exam because he just had an exam a month ago. Right. But yeah, the cost, that's my brain. My brain is just like, that can't be real, but I know it's real because it just like happened.
Well, I don't know. Another one of our programs that we help with is the cost of veterinary care. And because there are so many additional stressors and costs associated with military life that people just don't understand if they're not intimately familiar with it. Just the idea of how many single income families we have with kids, because, there's some sort of positive about the pandemic is that virtual work became such an amazing opportunity. But like before that, I did not know many military spouses that could keep a stable career, not to mention when your husband's constantly deploying or your spouse is constantly on training and now you're like having to do single parenting.
Yep.
And it's just really, 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 really hard. And so when your dog gets sick, or I should say it's dogs on deployment, but we also support all pets. So cats, snakes. We have boarded a snake named Pedro before on our website. So when you have these additional stressors, it's like, do I pay for my dog or do I get my kids new shoes? Like sometimes the choices are really that simple, like when it comes to basic care. And so like one of our programs that we started was also a spay neuter program. So offering vouchers now to, and we've been doing it for years, but primarily in San Diego, but we're coming up with a new voucher system that will allow anybody to get a small grant to help with the cost of spay neuter vaccines or microchipping. But it's really those emergency costs that like,
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I mean, $1,000 before we took her in, it was $1,000 to cover her emergency vet bill when we took her in. And we had made the decision to, we took her home and I was like, let's just, let's see how she does with like the medication and stuff like that. We didn't see like it was going to work. And then she like on like that fourth day, like, when we discussed, like, if she's not better, if she's not making any improvements by this day, we'll make that decision. She perked up and she lived for like she was good for another couple months. And then we're just like, then she kind of went downhill again. And we're just like, at this point, like, quality of life was more important over the quantity. So we decided that we were going to make that choice. But that was another, just putting her down. And of course I was, we didn't have to get her cremated, but I'm like, she's coming with me. I'm not leaving her in the state that I'm never going to come back to. So, just having her cremated and having her be able to come with us or put her where we would want to put her, that was another $600 to $700 that we had to do and that's just, again, that comes with being a pet owner. But I do think that, moving stressed her out. Like she started declining it more and more after we had moved up here. She was older dog, but she was not good with change. Like she should not be in a military dog. She was not good with change.
I feel that so deeply after my boy was 14. And, I always took him into his vets. Like he was such a well cared for dog. I always thought I was getting him the best food, all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden he collapsed one day when he was about 13 and a half. And I just knew something was wrong. Like his gums are pale. He wasn't eating the food bowl in front of him of his, kibble, and the girls were on their way out to school. And I was like, husband, like, babe, like you have to take the kids. I have to take JD to the emergency vet. And I took him over to Veterinary Specialty Hospital of North County in San Diego. And it turned out that he had a splenectic tumor that had ruptured and he was bleeding out internally. Now, at the time, I didn't know the journey that this situation would take me on. But if you're listening, I can probably guarantee you have a few of your listeners right now being like, I've had that to happen to my dog.
Yeah.
And you're forced with a decision at that point. Your dog is actively bleeding out and you're at an emergency vet and they're going to hand you a bill and it's going to be somewhere between $7,000 to $15,000 our bill. $15,000 to remove the spleen from my dog and save his life. Oh, by the way, because it's a splenectic tumor, there's a very high likelihood that it's actually not just a benign tumor that like exploded, but it's hemangiosarcoma, which is a highly aggressive cancer that's incurable, unstoppable. And once you remove the spleen, it's likely to metastasize on another organ like the liver or the heart or the lungs within 30 days. And you will be back in the hospital having to make
another bill. Yeah.
To at that point.
That was what we were at. We knew
like this tracks.
We knew that whatever it was, I think she was in kidney failure. We chose not to do the test or anything like that to confirm it because just based off of her symptoms, just based off of her age, we had done x-rays the first time around just to get an idea, which is where that high cost came from. But we made the decision that if we had to go back in, that we couldn't afford to keep doing it. Right. We didn't want to keep just prolonging her life. I mean, she can't
just remove the lung,
Like, She was miserable. She
Yeah.
was, barely walking. She's always been a lazy dog. I always kind of joke that she was a cat in another life. She acted like a cat. She sunbathed. She slept all day long. She hated to be outside unless there was a human outside. Like she just, I, anyways. So we like when she wasn't doing the things that she enjoyed, and when she stopped stealing food from the kids, that was kind of our note that like she's not good. She's not happy. She's not, living her best life. And so we made it, and oh my God. And I had prepared myself. I still wasn't prepared. Like,
Yeah.
our other dog that we had when we first got married passed away, but she passed away while we were both at work. So I came home and her passed away, which was a whole nother story. And thankfully we didn't really have any expenses with that because my husband took her in uniform to get cremated. And we were in an area where they're like, this is on us. Like, we want you to take your animal home with you. So I was like, that was really touching, stuff like that. Cause I was like, we were getting ready to like box her up and go find the field and bury her in. But then I was like, I can't leave her in Texas. Like, and again, it's one of those things. And so I love that you guys offer help with those bills, because one, that can help families who may have a dog that like, it is a one-time done and fix, like, but that bill is going to be high. Do you guys help with like the cremation part or like the?
Yeah, we have helped with end of life. I'll kind of, to wrap up that story with JD, I'd love to share with the listeners that if you ever do have a dog that goes in for a potential splenectic tumor, and it might be hemangiosarcoma, and you find yourself in that situation, one, we were extremely lucky. I got pet insurance with ASPCA pet insurance the day I got my puppy at 8 weeks old, and
Talked about more.
It paid 90% of that bill, up to like $10,000 was my maximum deductible. And luckily, because we had such a wonderful relationship with Veterinary Specialty Hospital as Dogs on Deployment, when they found out it was the mascot, they helped us out tremendously. So like huge kudos to that veterinarian for, again, paying it forward.
Yeah.
And allowing our family to decide to do the splenectomy. It came back positive as hemangiosarcoma. Now, if you ever find yourself in that situation, ask your vet if they are a part of the Ethos clinical trial. Ethos Discovery is a nonprofit research arm of Ethos Veterinarian Health, which is Veterinary Specialty Hospitals. But their clinical trial for hemangiosarcoma actually had JD taking a chemotherapy intravenous drug as well as a oral pill. And the hemangiosarcoma never came back. He lived 11 more happy months where we stopped feeding him kibble, because please your food and consider making some adjustments, because the likelihood that this cancer, which is rampantly caused across all breeds, all ages, all genders, all locations, there's only really a few things that these pets can have in common. And anyway, if they can finish this clinical trial, they'll be able to publish the results of where they think the origins of this particular cancer comes from. But my boy he passed away actually on this pillow in my arms. And like, it was the most beautiful, like, natural passing. We had actually scheduled the woman to come and put him to sleep. And we had this whole setup for him, and he was so comfortable, and we all said our goodbyes. And as I was holding him before she even came to inject him, he passed away. It was like he just knew it was time.
I'm gonna cry.
Yes, so many stories makes me so sad, because my dog, she's like 14 years old. She's like right there. And so far, she's doing really well. Like, she got out the other day and she went and the shelter picked her up or whatever. And they were like, "How old is she?" And I'm like, "She's 14." She's like, "She doesn't look 14." I was like, "Well, I'm glad that."
She's a dachshund, right?
Yeah.
Dachshunds, I feel like dachshunds can just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, my grandmother had a dachshund, and I swear that dog lived forever. I mean, my family dog that was a Yorkie lived until he was 18. It blew our mind. Like, like, it was crazy. Like, my younger sister, because like she had him like the entire time, like she like from when she was like 2 until now. And so, but I was just like, that dog's still alive. Like, not like, yay. But at the same time, I'd be like, how is he still alive? Like, he had no teeth, nothing. Like, he was, but it,
We're our
those
little battle
stories,
buddies, though. Like, I've had her basically our
yes,
entire time that we've been part of the military family,
yeah,
and she's been through 4 or 5 deployments with us and multiple moves, and
yep.
yeah.
And I think that's like why military families have such a strong connection with their dogs. I mean, not that saying like other people don't, but they are our battle buddies. They're there they are keeping that side of the bed warm when our service members are gone, or they are providing that companionship to our kids. I mean, it was so much harder to let go of Molly than I thought it was going to be because the kids were older. Devlin was 3 when Maddie passed. Claire was still in my stomach, so she's only seen pictures of Maddie, but it's so weird because, like, you're right, like, Molly has been there through all these deployments. She's been there through all of my births, has been there with the babies and all that kind of stuff. So, like, not having her there anymore is such a weird, it's just weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I think back. It's like my husband and I, when we got married, we ended up, for our first 10 years together, we spent 7 years separated because of our dual military service. 7 years. And looking back on it, like, one, I don't know how we made it because there was so much loneliness and anger and hurt and, like, just the inability to just be normal.
Yeah.
You don't realize what you're giving up when you join the service or when you marry into or decide to be a partner of somebody in the service. And everything feels very like idealistic or manageable when you're young, and then like the hard stuff starts happening. And there were days that, or nights that I'm just like in my bed, like unable to move, and like the only thing I had was my dog. And like there's moments where when I get really stressed, I still have that like ghost feel. Like I go like this, I find myself going like this because this is what I would do on his butt. And it's like I still can feel like the softness of his fur like in my hands. And that is like a very like visceral, like almost trauma response to some really hard emotional breakdowns that I had. And the only thing that was there for me was my dog.
Yeah. They're very special indeed. So you created this beautiful program. You have all these different things to help military families. How can we, as military families or listeners who are listening maybe over on Wreaths Across America, how can we support you? Like what is needed? What is the process of either one, finding someone to watch your family member, or how can you help a service member when they need it?
Totally. That's first, I want to touch on Wreaths Across America. We are a registered charity with them. We have been supported by them for several years now. So if you are participating in Wreaths Across America, what we've had people in the past do is kind of like create teams in their area. So they'll all go out and they'll all fundraise together for Dogs on Deployment on the website. It makes it super easy. You just share the link to your friends and family and you just select Dogs on Deployment as the charity of choice. And then they would actually go to a memorial site and lay the wreaths together and, do it in honor of supporting our organization. I will say that in terms of just support right now, if you are available to help, you can go to our website and register as a boarder. However, most military families aren't available to help. So I ask for military families a different thing, and that is we need more exposure in our communities. We have such a high turnover of leadership, of military spouse chain of commands, of the fleet and family readiness officers, all of these people that are the ones that support the resource sharing, they turn over. And I've been out of the service for a few years now. And so I really rely on the people that are still there to be the ones to be like, hey, can I get 250 flyers for a pre-deployment brief?
Yeah.
I want to present Dogs on Deployment as a resource so that my husband or my partner's unit is able to, know about this organization. Because we're a charity, we cannot be endorsed by the Department of Defense, which means we need civilians to go in and say, please, showcase this organization to your service members so that way they know that they don't
that
have
we
to
exist.
animal shelter.
We're here to exist. Yes.
Yeah, and like going to your animal shelter and dropping off some flyers. We have free printable flyers on our website. You can also order wrap cards from us. We'll send them to you for free.
Oh, that's nice.
If you are at a place where you can drop them off at the base gym or the base veterinarian or the base, or a local pet food store, we are always looking to partner with veteran owned businesses. So we do a lot of brewery partnerships, doing collaboration beers, doing event fundraisers. So if you're in business of some sort and would like to do a sort of charity give back, please contact us. We also are always in search for just people that want to give time to the organization. Specifically, we're looking for people that have PR, marketing experience, even web design experience. We're about to undergo a major new product refresh because our website is aging and we need to do things to keep it.
Yeah, we're doing the exact same thing. So,
you forget that's the non-sexy side, right? And so, I will never, I'm not in search of donations from the military community itself because we're here to support you. But if you know people that would be your family, your friends, when it comes to Christmas or holidays, think of us as an organization that you might want to support. And we are also in the combined federal campaign. I believe our number is 51716. So if you're looking to support dogs in deployment through that, we're also available as well. But our email is info@dogsinDeployment.org. It goes to my executive director, who is a military spouse, and I and our small team. We're all military spouses. We're looking to bring more people into our team. So yeah, just all the good things out there. Help us get the word out and help us raise awareness. And at the end of the day, we exist to ensure that no service member, veteran, or first responder has to choose between service and their pet's safety or longevity of them with their family.
I love that. And I love that you were saying, just helping us get the word out. That's why we started the podcast. That's why, we continue to interview into our 5th season, because we know that there are so many organizations out there that are providing services that Deployed Love isn't providing through our services, but we know that there are things out there. And so I love that idea I love that you have the printable flyers on the website so people can go print them off, send it in. That's a great tool. Even if you're just presenting it, like if you're a key spouse, key caller, FRG leader, whatever it may be in that service of branch, like bringing that to one of your meetings, and just, especially if you're getting ready to come up on a JRTC recycle or deployment or something where there may need to be some extra help and there's not anything that's coming of it, please share, because I've heard stories of people just dumping their animals, and that's just sad, and we want to make sure that the animals are either going to a loving home or you can keep your family member in a safe space and with you. And I love that. I'm so glad we finally got to have you on the podcast and we were able to share your story and your journey, and that we can now share that with other military families. And so that way, hopefully they now know that there is a safe and welcoming environment where they can go and find assistance, whether it is finding a home, finding assistance with a bill. I love that so much. And I actually learned so much today, because I thought you guys just helped with boarding. So I learned so much about that today, which is amazing, because you never know when you're going to need that assistance.
Yeah. And that's how you do it, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, we didn't talk a ton about how the boarding works, but if you are a veteran listening to this and you're lonely at home, and I know that is large percentage, and we all know that pets and animals are very, very helpful when it comes to PTSD and things like that too.
Yeah.
And this is a really, really good opportunity, because as military families, we are very transitional. We're not able to do the boarding. But as veterans, if you're sitting at home and you're retired, you're sitting at home, this is a great opportunity to continue to be part of the military community, to give back to the military community, and watch a puppy. They're so sweet. I like we said, we follow you everywhere, and I'm always seeing the pictures. I'm like, I wish I could do this, because they're just someone's babies. And I've had so many friends where they're single, like Ashley mentioned, that they have to deploy, and once you're over E3, you have your own house, but then it's like, where does my dog go? Where does that happen? And these are the families that it's helping a lot of, is those soldiers that have to deploy, and it suddenly happens, and hey, we need somebody to watch our dogs. So that part of it is huge, and that's where you started. So making sure that the veterans, if you're listening, like really consider it. And some of these deployments are only 3 months. It's a little commitment, but it's something to take care of somebody's loved one while they're gone.
Yes, you make such a good point that the time frame can be a few weeks, it can be a few months, it can be a few years. It really all depends, and it's up to you as the boarder to decide where you're able to go with that. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, I feel like that's, as a volunteer organization, we have the same issue on Deployed Love. Is a lot of people think it's so much more of a commitment than it really is, and it's like, really, it can be whatever you're willing to give us. Same with your volunteers. If you're willing to volunteer at any nonprofit, it may look like these big jobs, but if you want to get involved, we will find ways to make it work with your schedule.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
The beggars can't be choosers in some aspect, and
We'll
there's
help wherever it comes from.
You come to me, you have an idea, you have a talent. I might not think that I need
Exactly.
I will skill sets can be adapted to accomplish the mission, right?
Exactly.
Some of the most interesting projects or developments that we have, it comes from somebody being like, well, I have this skill set, what can we do with it? And it's like, I don't know, let's
figure it out.
Yes.
Well, I think that's what is amazing about the military community, is that we all have such a wide range of skill sets, and I feel majority of military spouses are also just really great at like learning, because we're kind of forced to do that anyways. And so we have so many people who are just like, well, I don't know how to do that, but let me at it. So, that is just another way, like, we're always talking about, like, even if it's something that you really don't know how to do, but you're willing to learn and all that kind of stuff, like, we'll help you learn, we'll help you grow. And so just having that space of community as well to help you do those things is really important. And so that's one of my favorite things about working in the nonprofit sector, the volunteering, is the ability to learn and grow and find who you truly can be, and find that comfort and that fulfillment that you get from volunteering.
Absolutely. And it can develop so many skill sets. And that's something that I always talk to military spouses that have volunteered for the organization before, is like, where's your resume going? And what work experience would really beef up your resume? And can you work with jobs and employment so that we can write you a strong letter of recommendation for
exactly. Yep.
We do the same thing at Deployed Love. I'm like, we have access as nonprofits to training for free. Like, please let us help you while you help us. Like, absolutely do that.
Yeah, all the things. Philanthropy is, I did not think when I was 22 years old starting this organization that I would still be doing it now. Was that 14 years later? And the fact that I still am shows such a testament to like the core of who service members are. Like, if we all have that kind of desire for community and that desire for connection and that desire for purpose and meaning, you can find that in philanthropy. I know when I left the service, I really had a hard time working for corporate America because it just doesn't exist there, And so I think, that's a whole other topic, but if you're kind of feeling that like directionless, I don't know where to take my career or my life, whether you're transitioning or you're building a new career or you're just trying to, improve yourself or find meaning in your life, like, go volunteer with a cause, get some real perspective from people that have needed that organization, and like find passion in how you can use your effort to make your community that you care about better.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a good place to kind of end on. And I really appreciate you coming on. And as a nonprofit world, we all kind of have the same thing, this heart, this mission to just take care of our community. And I hope that we are able to help you get in front of a lot of other people. And if you're listening, at least go follow them on social media. You would be surprised. Just following and liking content helps so much for people. So we will have everything that we can in show notes so that you guys are able to just click a link right over to that. And we will make sure that you guys have that information. But as we like to say, and we continue, is RUP Buttercup.
Bye, everybody.